And now, live from our Smokehouse studio, it's time for Real Estate Jerky. All your real estate questions answered by our provocatively lean expert hosts. Edward Ed Parcaut, MBA, veteran, and president of Lending for Living. We'll give you something to chew on. Real Estate Jerky is on now.
That's my California.
Thanks for joining us here on Real Estate Jerky. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, joined with my new co-host and established RE/MAX realtor, Mike Kelly, keeping you up to date on real estate and what's happening in our communities. Our studio's right here in Modesto at my office. That's right.
Wow.
And yeah, it's amazing. And we have our fabulous engineer, Mike Burry, and the incredible radio signal, iHeartMedia, and the station KFIV. We'll always bring you something to chew on here at Real Estate Jerky. If you have any questions, you can call or text me at 209-404-1915 or email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. Mike, thanks for coming on the whole show here and co-hosting with me.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And I think I'll mention this a few times through the show, but we do a morning show, which a lot of people might not know, on live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and we talk about the market at 8:30 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I thought I'd have you come on here and see if you like it.
I do. It's kind of fun. And besides, my grandpa always said I had a face for radio.
And you have a good voice for that. So a lot of people might not know who Mike Kelly is, right? I've known you for years. We did a couple transactions together, but it doesn't, just because you don't constantly work with somebody doesn't mean you don't work with somebody.
Right. True.
What's your background? Because I know one time you were a painter.
Painting contractor with my daddy. I actually didn't hold the contracting license. My daddy did. And we did a lot of custom homes in the area and a lot of repaints and a few little subdivisions and a third generation. And when we had my son, I thought, maybe I'll change careers so there's not a fourth generation, and got into real estate.
Why real estate?
My practice wife at the time was in real estate and working at PMZ Real Estate, and she said, I think you'd be good at this. And so I studied and passed a test and got into real estate, and that was 32 years ago. So still doing it.
Wow, 32 years.
I'm fairly good. I know a few things.
Well, you do know a lot, because you brought up things on our morning show that I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. And I've been doing this for 25 years. So, I mean, because you have the real estate side that would be good for the show when it comes to different things about homes,
right,
and painting and other stuff.
Right, and in some legislation and stuff like that comes down the pike that we always need to either fight and or support, and that's part of being involved with the California Association of Realtors as a director.
Are you a director right now?
I'm a director right now. I'm actually Region 7. Region 7, there's 32 or 31 regions in the state of California for California Association of Realtors. Region 7 comprises of 7 associations in and around the valley and mountain areas. So, and then, the chair just kind of coordinates the meetings. We get together, go over all the meetings that happen during the day and figure out how issues will affect the region, and then vote accordingly.
All right. Well, and it's important to get involved with,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can, and that's in anything, local elections, what you in your industry that you're part of, how to, control certain things. Because NAR and CAR, they control certain things like the contracts, right? How certain things are written.
Absolutely.
Things.
Yep.
And what's nice is if you have an issue and you need to understand whether or not you can actually call up to the CAR and talk to their attorneys and other people and get some ideas of how to fix something.
Yeah, free of charge, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
So
what's going on? Where would my voice go? What's going on in Modesto right now with real estate?
What's going on in Modesto right now? Real estate inventory is still low. Now, I know on the other radio show we talk about, nationally there's 30% or 3 months worth of inventory. It's got to be the Middle West. Right. Or the middle of the country that's providing those numbers. Modesto area, surrounding areas, inventory is low. It's picked up a little tiny bit, but not enough to make a drop in prices. So prices are stable. You're still getting one or two purchase contracts on a listing if you're priced correctly, and sometimes you're selling for over list price, sometimes just list price.
Right.
And it's a great time for the buyers to jump into the market because of the fluctuation in interest rates.
Right.
Buyers, some buyers have chosen to wait it out and wait for lower interest rates. So you've got less competition in the buyer market. So you can actually write an offer and get it accepted, which is what you're trying to do.
Right. I mean, that's important right now because real estate, especially in our area, like you said, I mean, we're not nationwide. You can't go off of what those numbers are. Whenever they said that nationwide we were at 19% appreciation, or we're in Modesto, we're at 22%.
Right.
Right. Because we're unique. We haven't built any homes. We usually build 1,000 homes a year in Modesto, and we're at 100 homes in Modesto right now.
Right.
And we haven't really built any homes because I had somebody tell me yesterday, should I wait until the market drops a little bit before I buy this house? He's looking for $1 million+ house. I'm like, it's not going to
drop.
happen. Yeah. I said, we're short 4.3 million homes, which means at the rate we're building them, it's going to take over 19 years to get caught up. And actually, it's going to be longer than that because we're adding 150,000 homes to that number right now each year.
The need for 150,000 homes.
Well, no, what's happening is what we're building, we're short 150,000 homes. Instead of being positive 200,000 and eating into that, we're a completely negative and adding to the deficit instead of getting rid of the deficit.
Like exponential savings, except it's a deficit.
Correct. You're listening here to Real Estate Jerky right here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV with me, your host, Ed Parcaut, and my new co-host, Mike Kelly. You can reach out to me at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915, or visit us here at realestatejerky.com. All right, so when we're coming, our next segment, we're going to have Nick Blom on for Blom from the MID board, and we're talking about water. What's your kind of take on right now on that? Before we get into that segment, is there anything you want to talk about or bring up about real estate?
With regards to water?
Anything, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, well,
I know we talk about a lot.
Without water, you don't have anything really. Right. It's the beginning of everything. So if you can't provide the water to a new subdivision or even to an older subdivision, if you can't provide the services, and water being one of the most important, it's not going to happen. And in cities and towns, and if there's no growth, they die.
Right. Well, and then back to what you just talked about, subdivisions. Our biggest problem right now is we're not building. Right. The ones that we're building were put into place 20 some years ago of, hey, we're going to build the subdivision. All right. 25 years later, here we're building it.
Yeah. And because markets change, so they have to either retool or they just say, hey, we're just going to sit on the land for a while, and then we'll when market goes back up. Now, we've been in an up market for quite a few years.
Right.
So you would think that there would be more building going on.
I think the problem right now is because of costs and the
you've got the supply chain issue.
It's the same reason we're not building our place on 32 acres. It was a 37% increase in costs.
37%?
Yeah.
So increase in costs, yeah.
So if it was only a $500,000 house, how much is that?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. So, and you can't, it used to be in the day you could just pass the expense on to the consumer.
Right.
At this point, you just can't.
No.
You just can't. So
because it can't. It costs more than you can sell them for to a certain point, right? And then we brought this up about the small homes being built in Riverbank. Mm-hmm. For 600 to 700 square foot homes for $350,000,
which is absolutely. You think we would never see that. But we're seeing it.
Well, actually, they got to pass it through. They have their whole charter. It doesn't allow that size home, so they have to get that whole thing changed.
So if they do that, which they may, then you're going to be seeing it. People will be snapping them up. It's an interesting time, and what was that? One of the curses, may you be born in an interesting time. We're in a recession, although they have a new definition for a recession, but we're also in a recession with a record-breaking inflation.
Right.
So new homes are not being built.
I'm sorry. That
Resale
was
is
not
important.
one-
Resale is important.
Sorry, you can finish
Okay.
it. That means I have 1 minute.
So that makes resale even more important, and that's why we're passing legislation to be able to provide tax breaks and incentives for other people who are normally tax locked into their home to sell.
Right. Prop 19.
Yep.
Yeah, that helped. I explained that to somebody yesterday, and it saved them $250,000 of extra that
Additional tax on top of their
yeah. So
that's a lot.
It's huge. It's huge because that's, for most people that could be $3,000.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live.
Yeah, 1.21% usually.
Yep. How big of a problem is water for Californians? Do you understand what makes Stanislaus and southern San Joaquin County's water situation unique to California? Do you know why we have to fight to keep our water here in Stanislaus? Well, if you don't understand or could use some updating, our next guest is the perfect person to help. Joining us after the break is Nick Blom, Modesto Irrigation Board member and Division 5. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
You can change the way you live out the rest of your life with our new reverse mortgage products from Lending for Living. Our loan limits are the highest available. Call us today at 209-846-9270 or visit lendingforliving.com.
This is Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV. I'm Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living and your host on the show. We're talking water with MID board member Nick Blom.
Yep.
About water and everything that's going on. Hey Nick, thank you for coming to the show. And also, Mike, whenever you have any questions, just ask away. All right.
I know how to do that.
I know you do. I'm just giving you the opportunity.
Okay.
All right. So one of our biggest thing that we talked about before the show was feds. Everybody wants to take our water, right?
Yep.
From California, and MID and TID are a little different, but everybody wants our water. We have a lot of water, and everybody wants it. What can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, what we're doing, especially at MID and TID, is we're working with attorneys, which, nobody likes to have an attorney unless you need one. And so we've got some really good attorneys helping us out, making sure that the laws are followed and that we don't lose any of our water rights.
And so the laws are followed and not lose any rights. But really, they're trying to do everything to control us. We talked about before the show about how they're trying to come after the wells.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And they're trying new strategies every day. It used to be where it's the flows, then it's the flows because we need to save the Delta smelt. Well, there's not even any Delta smelts anymore. And I'm not a fisherman or avid fisherman, but people say it's not even a very good bait fish. So what are we trying to save it for? And not that I want to get rid of everything, but we have to understand that humans have to survive. And if you look at the way things are, human water consumption is number one, top priority. Then you go to farm and environment. Well, let's just make sure that we can survive here. And so we're doing things that we can. We prove that we're using water for a beneficial use. We're not wasting any water. That's absolute. And so we could work together. We just need to figure out a balance. And the problem is they're disingenuous when they argue with us. And because I won't even say they debate with us. They argue with us. And so that's the problem that we're having.
That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all the politicians don't really want to work with us. They want, certain ones, I should say, and especially California. But the other issue with the well, how will they control that? Will they put a device on there to stop you from taking water if you're taking too much water? And is it going to be like a meter? Do we know?
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is they'd have to put a meter. But they want to start charging you for, I'm on a domestic well because I live out in the country. There's no city water, and what are they going to do? Put a meter on my domestic well and tell me I can only have so much water for my house? Come on now.
So much water for free, and then they start charging you additionally, or
that I don't know. I don't even know what their plan is. All I get that the state wants to start charging us for using our well water. Well, in California, any water that's underground under your ground is your water.
Right. It's supposed to be.
That's your water because those are water rights that you have for the water under. So you own that water, right?
Yes.
So shouldn't we be charging the state if they take any of that water away from us?
Well, you would think. At MID, we have our canal system is 100 years old, and it's probably one of the most Cadillac systems that is in the state. But our system was designed on a spill. There's water that goes out the end of our canal systems into the river.
Right.
We haven't seen one dime for that water that we ever put into the river. So if we want to start charging us for using our water, then the state's going to have to start paying for the water we're putting in the river.
Yeah. Yeah. And is the state saying that because they're the state, that anything that's on the state is theirs?
Well, they want to change the whole water rights system that's been in place for over 100 years. They want to change that. They want to just abolish the system we have and start something new, and they want to be in charge, of course. Because government never screws anything up.
I've never seen it happen.
Well,
that one time.
Yeah.
That's like they say, what's the 5 worst words you can hear from the...
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. Right? It's just amazing because a lot of people don't realize your rights, since we were on rights of water, that some people have additional rights, like longer rights on the property they own because they've owned them for a longer period of time. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Well, and especially on the property that you've owned, there's different things that happen. But I mean, really, when you buy property, you buy all the mineral, the water rights, everything like that. So you still have those water rights. The district has what we call pre-1914 water rights, which are kind of like the godsend water rights. And obviously in 1914, so it was before that we claimed the water on the river for this area. And so those are the ones that are hard. So you got a junior water right holder, like somebody in the Delta area or something like that showed up, say in the 50s or 60s. Well, we have to get our water before you get your water.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
In seasons of drought like we are in right now, we're not going to take more than we deserve. We're not going to take more than we need, but we have the right to the water first.
We were talking earlier, and you had talked about people would drive by orchards and see irrigation, and they would equate that with wasting water. What's your opinion on that? I mean, I don't think it's wasting. We kind of how things grow.
I think I said the same thing earlier. Is tell me that with your mouth full, because without water you can't have anything growing. I mean, we can't live without water. I mean, we don't drink water, we die. So with food and everything, if you're growing, yes, it takes water to produce almonds. Yes, it takes water to produce peaches. Yes, it takes water to produce grapes to make wine. It's the same thing. I always tell everybody. The newspapers use the most ink in the world. Really? So we use the most water because we're producing the most food.
Right.
Wow. That's really deep. Yeah, most ink. But now there's no difference from what you use on the farm, right, and the amount of water than if you have a bunch of people in a subdivision, right?
It's almost a 1-for-1, which is kind of amazing, and that's why, like at MID, we've got the water treatment plant. So when an acre of farm ground gets developed into homes, that water that used to go to the farm ground now goes through the treatment plant, and that water is now used for drinking or domestic use in those homes that were built on that acre of ground. And it almost is a 1-for-1 ratio. Now, if you put apartment complex or something like that, then obviously they're going to use more. But normal homes, I think, 5 homes to an acre or something like that, I think is the ratio. It's pretty similar.
We're talking about one of the most important basics to life, water, with today's guest, Nick Blom, MID Board of Supervisor, Division 5. If you have any questions or comment for Nick at MID, you can reach out to us through MID's website at mid.org. That's mid.org. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out by dialing 209-404-1915. Again, that's 209-404-1915. Or by visiting us at lendingforliving.com. You can also email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. All right. Now we're going to come back in. Anything that you want to, that we didn't, because we got we still got 6 minutes here. Okay. All right. And, so when we're talking before the break, we're talking about different things and the water rights and how the same amount of water is being used for 5 homes on an acre as it is potentially for farmers. And there shouldn't be a problem with you utilizing the water in the acreage and what people complain about. But the biggest thing I see is you have, in Southern California, you have these houses and man-made lakes and all this stuff, and they get the water from us, right? Because they have no water, right? They get the water from up here. We're limited to what we can do with water, right? We can water, is it 2 days a week now or 3 days a week now?
It's 2 right now.
2, yeah.
Well, I better go change that.
They're talking about going back to 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wong talked about that the other day.
Well, I think the problem with that is, even in whatever I talked about this before, they should just say this is how much water you have per house. All right. If you have 7 people in that house, then you're going to use more of it for other things. If you don't, if you have 1 or 2 people, then you want to use it on your landscape, go ahead. I think they should give us so much water instead of saying, well, you can't use water, right? They look at what you used the year before. If you go over that, then they start looking at saying you've used too much water. Have you got that notice, Mike, at all? I'm just saying, have you noticed
last year,
they sent a thing saying, oh, you're 20% over than what you used last year. Well, I was gone all last year.
In Sacramento, CAR, they were talking about, and I can't remember the gallonage, but they were talking about the governor wanted to limit per family like 15 gallons per family of 4, 15 gallons a month or a day of water usage. That may seem like a lot of water. It's not a lot of water if you also are including your landscaping, and especially if you have teenage girls or boys that are showering for 35 minutes at a time, And you need to cut those things, but I mean, that's really not that much water.
You're taking too long in there. Get out of there.
Right.
I used to always yell at my son, finish the fantasy, get out.
Well, and the thing of it is, you hit on it, the landscaping. You got an apartment complex with 4 people living in an apartment or whatever. They're going to use a whole lot less water compared to a home with 4 or 5 people in it and a landscape. You know, and I touched on it when we were talking earlier in the break. But you look at asphalt, concrete, dry dirt, rocks, however landscaping you want. It's all a lot hotter and it radiates a lot more heat than if you have a nice lush green lawn.
Absolutely.
And so we're talking about the temperatures in the cities and stuff going higher and higher every year. Drive out to the west side on a hot summer day or an evening when things are starting to cool down. The temperature will drop 5 to 6 degrees just once you get
closer to vegetation.
Yes.
Trees.
And I mean, you were worried about CO2. Well, hello, people. Plants use CO2 to survive, and they produce what? Oh, oxygen for us. Yeah. So we need those plants to survive. And obviously, they need water to survive. So
I don't think they teach that in school anymore.
I don't know
about plants where we get the
I don't know that they're teaching much about
photosynthesis.
How much time do we have on this break?
We don't ever say that, but we still have another 2 minutes before we go.
Okay,
that'll be cut out.
The one thing that I'm always interested in, and nobody ever seems to talk about it, is how the schools and the parks waste, in my opinion, waste a ton of water. The Davis Park. Okay, they've been watering College Avenue for weeks, months, maybe even a year. One sprinkler, watering College Avenue. College Avenue's not getting any bigger. Right over there. Don't water it anymore.
Well, and that's a maintenance. That's really a maintenance issue and stuff.
But when you see a maintenance issue, and when you take a picture of it with that Modesto site and send it in, and then nothing happens, nobody's correcting.
It's upsetting.
It is a little upsetting because there's so much waste.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, you hate to see water going down the streets, and I mean, I just. My bones still hurt because this past weekend I replaced the drip system in my landscape and part of it because it was leaking real bad and I couldn't repair it anymore. I just had to replace.
Right.
And those are the things that I probably put it off a little longer than I should have, and my neighbors may have seen the water leaking by the street, but I finally got to it and now it's fixed. So.
Yeah, and I've got no lawn at my house. I've got a pool in there which displaces daily use of water, and I've got everything on drip.
Yeah. So
the only thing I found out is that if I had sent plans in prior to doing it, I would have gotten a rebate from the city.
Oh, there you go.
So
well, see, and you mentioned drip, and I did as well. But I mean, in the orchards, flood replenishes groundwater.
Right.
Drip does not.
Right.
Hey, we're talking most important thing in life, which is water, and it's important here as anywhere else in the state of California or in the United States. Today's guest is Nick Blom. He is the board member at MID and Division 5, and that's the place. And if you have any questions or comments for Nick, you can reach him out at mid.org, or you can get a hold of me here at Real Estate Jerky, and you can just get us at realestatejerky.com, or you can call me at 209-404-1915, and we'll be right back.
Our new reverse mortgage product limits can change the way you live out the rest of your life.
All right, this is Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV. I'm Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, and your host for the show. We're talking water with MID board member Nick Blom. And we're here with also Mike Kelly. Mike, thanks for being here today and filling in.
Thanks for having me. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, we'll get it down. It's all new for us. We've been doing it for 4 years, but now there's a little change.
Yeah.
All right. So, Nick, before we were talking about irrigating and we're talking about sprinklers and different things and how people complain that when people irrigate, they're wasting water. But that's not the case.
No. And even an orchard that still does the traditional flood irrigation, you're replenishing groundwater. And so much so that now they're actually talking about on-farm recharge, which is, I'm actually doing a meeting here next month, and we're talking about trying to get farmers to put flood irrigation on the off-season, so in the wintertime when there's not really need to irrigate, but it's going to help recharge the groundwater. Because, I mean, the groundwater is important. We talked earlier about the state wanting to start charging us for using the groundwater, but they need to start paying us for putting the water back into the groundwater. So, these are things that we're all looking at. I mean, we all want to try to be sustainable. That's the whole thing. And I always laugh at, somebody said, oh, you guys are, ruining the ground as farmers and this and that. I'm like, hey, look, my dad farmed, I farm. I want my kids to be able to farm the same ground. So we are environmentalists. We have to be. Because if you ruin your own ground, then you've got nothing. And so we're probably the most sustainable group of people that you can find.
Now, which is better, drip or flooding? Or irrigating a farm or orchard. A lot of orchards went to drip irrigation,
yes.
Correct? But is that better?
There are huge benefits to both.
Yeah.
The drip irrigation, you can put the water where you want it, when you want it. You can put fertilizer through the drip system, so you can actually get fertilizer right to your trees. I used to always say, when we fertilize to need. We don't fertilize just to fertilize. It's kind of like filling up your 20-gallon tank of gas.
Right.
You don't put 20 gallons in the tank when you're down to 5 gallons left. You only put 15 gallons in. We do that. We do soil samples. We do tissue samples. We do all kinds of samples. It's not just throw some fertilizer out there. It's put what the tree needs and what it can absorb, because the stuff's expensive.
And it's amazing what you're doing with drip irrigation these days with the micronutrients and all the stuff that's going into the trees.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever, where it's needed, not just all over the ground.
Well, and it's really easy to start up an orchard when you have drip system out there. Because you can, with flood irrigation, you're looking at probably putting a flood on every 15 to 25 days, depending on your soil type. Well, you put too much water on little trees, it's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And now with drip, you can put a little bit of drip. You can run it for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever you want, 2-3 times a week. And
roots can handle it.
And the roots can handle it, and the trees are happy, and they grow real well. And so we on our ranch, and a lot of our neighbors have done the same, we'll still flood irrigate in between running the drip. A lot of times, the way our operation works is when the canal water comes in, we flood irrigate everything just to saturate that profile, get everything wet, and then we supplement the whole season. We may flood here and there, just depends. And then at the end of the season, when we're done harvesting, we'll flood it one more time.
So California has happy cows and happy trees.
Yes, exactly.
All right, that was pretty good there, Mike.
Yeah.
But you said it has its own benefits, right?
Yep.
But does the water get back in the ground table when you drip irrigate?
Not usually, because
I understand that.
Yeah.
But
your systems are set up so that you're putting as much water as the tree needs. And so if you see water standing out in an orchard, that usually means they're putting a little bit too much, more than they need. But if you look at it, as a farmer, I look at that and I go, hey, wait a minute. But if I come back a day later and the water's gone, then I understand, yep, they put enough out there and it's already gone. It's not too much.
Right, but that goes back in the table if you do.
It will.
Yeah.
Yep, it will.
So each one has their own benefit, but also I think with the drip, what you're talking about, where you can put whatever nutrients you need just to the trees instead of, because it used to be they put it all over and then that would potentially get down in the groundwater. Correct?
But we've it could, but we've done so much research and studying. We look at the root zone. What's up above the ground is usually what's below the ground. So when you got gaps in it, you don't really need the fertilizer where the gaps are. So you're putting it around the trees, basically what you see on the top, that's where you want to put it. And the roots on the ground are about as wide. So, but like flood irrigation, it's great for rodent control. It really does eliminate some of those problems. You don't have ant problems, and in almonds, ants is a big deal. So when you flood irrigate, you pretty much wipe out your ant problems. But like I said, with drip irrigation, you got your other benefits. So
yeah, I remember as a kid we'd irrigate, and then all those gophers would come up, and then my dog would run out there and grab every one of them, and just like it had a heyday. Now you brought up rodent, and before the show we were talking.
Oh.
And we have some major rodents I don't think people really know about.
No, the nutria. And
they know about them in New Orleans.
Yes, and they had them up in the Massachusetts Bay area too.
Really?
And but it's a rat beaver mix. I guess I don't know if that's about the best way. If you look it up, it's one ugly thing.
Where'd it come from originally?
That I don't know. I think probably southern hemisphere. That's what it looks like to me.
The story I remember from Captain Tom on the Alligator Tour boat was they were brought over from France to help fight, I can't remember the snake problem, but there was a snake problem in New Orleans. And then they just, there was no natural predator to the nutria, and because they're big, ugly, nasty, webbed feet.
Yes, and they bore into the levees. That's why they're really afraid to get them down in the delta where the farm and homes are below the water level, because if they get a levee that breaks out there,
oh my God,
they're in trouble.
Yep, big time.
And so where are they right now? Are they around here in our area?
No, they're definitely in Stanislaus County. They're catching them on the San Joaquin River. Fish and Game's working hard on it. It's kind of funny, Fish and Game is all about protecting the animals. Fish and Game wants to get rid of this animal.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pretty invasive.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it can go, go into boreholes in the levees. That was really easy for them to get out. That really can damage a lot of things around us.
And it breeds like rabbits.
That's not good.
No.
Does it taste like chicken?
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
Find out.
Maybe we should catch a couple.
There you go.
And then we'll find out. And hey, we're talking the most important thing right now is water and what we can do with that water we have and how to protect it. We're here with our guest, Nick Blom, MID board member, Division 5. If you got any questions for him, reach out to him at mid.org, or you can reach out to us at Radio Real Estate Jerky. And Nick, what else do we need to really focus on that we haven't talked about so far?
We need conservation is not going to get us out of a drought.
No.
So storage, maybe?
Storage is a big thing, and above or below ground, we're talking about things like utilizing the above ground storage we have. There's years when Don Pedro is so full that we're spilling water. I mean, 2017 was the last time we opened one of the spill gates. If we could have put that water somewhere, and we're talking 6.3 miles, I think, straight across to New Melones. Well, sure would have been nice if we could have put some water over into New Melones and then, transfer that way. No idea is too crazy. 6 miles of pipeline is nothing.
Yeah.
It's just getting the problem is that we fall into is the federal government runs New Melones. Don Pedro is run by us.
Oh, so that won't happen.
And so, yeah, we have to work. But you say that, but you know what? They didn't think any dams were ever going to get built either, and we got dams built. So it's important that we just keep trying to do things and come up with some new ideas. I always chuckle because the Sites Reservoir is one that they always mention. Well, the Sites Reservoir they've been talking about for 20 years, I think now. And is it done? No. But at least they're working on it, and we can try to get something. That's not the savior. Don Pedro is so big, we could store so much water, and if we could move some of that water to New Melones and back and forth, because it's almost level, it could take a pump to go back and forth. So, and then you got Del Porto Canyon Reservoir that they want to build over there.
Right.
It's not huge, and it's going to be like the San Luis Reservoir. They're going to pump water in and take water out, but it's another storage spot.
Right.
I think because one you were just talking about that was around SIPs. What was it?
The Sites Reservoir.
Yeah, I mean we have all the money ready. We have everything in place. They're just being fought on that one still, right?
Oh yeah, no, and what was it? 9 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. Now when we had that whole thing, we were going to make money. Prop 1, I think, is what it was. I'm terrible with those, but. It was going to be all this new storage. Not one dime has been spent for new storage. and it's been 10 years at least.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I feel that if the politicians, they always want to use any disaster or any issue for, and so if we fix the water issue, and if we worked on thinning out the forest issue, California wouldn't be on fire, and there would be water to put it out if we did get on fire. And now the problem is we want to keep that there's hardly any water, and then a lot of fire, so that we have these disasters and issues all the time, so they can get federal money, federal stuff. And if we fix that, we'd have no crisis.
Well, and it's funny you say about the forest management. Forest that is managed actually stores more water because the snow actually makes it to the ground, and then it melts and ends up in the reservoir.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
who would have thunk that?
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise it's so thick that the snow never makes it to the ground, and then it evaporates.
I mean, because back in December, we had a lot of snow, right? We had, and it melted, and I mean, we usually get a lot of snow in January into February. This year we got a lot in December. So if we were able to store that water, like you talked about, we still have enough water and not have to conserve.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, and conserving, like I said, isn't going to do it, because if you shut off all of human consumption, you're less than 25% of the water use in the state.
Wow.
So we're in a drought, and you're gonna save 15%, 20% of the water. That isn't doing anything.
Right.
Well, that was like
it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Right. Orville Dam, when the spillway broke, right,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
all that water went out in that 24 or 48 hour period. That was more water than we conserved for the last 5 years.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
In one oopsie doopsie.
Yeah, one oopsie doopsie. So that tells you it doesn't really matter what we do. It's just another form of the Green New Deal thing. I look at.
Well, it makes you feel good.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. You're like, no, I have.
Nick, does it really make you feel good?
Not really.
Yeah. I want to eat. I want to make sure there's enough water to grow food and other stuff. So we need to do storage. We have to do better with.
Yes, we do, and that would be a great start. And the water districts are working with each other, trying to do certain things. We're coming up with ideas that may or may not come to fruition, but to help each other out. Right. And that's like I said, if we can get this tunnel, and now we go down to I think it's McClure. Mm-hmm. That's down south.
Right.
We could tie into that one as well. Now we got 3 big reservoirs that we can tie into and help everybody out. Man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention, Nick, we were talking earlier about just commerce. Just almonds alone, the provider of the world's almonds.
Yep.
About 80%, right? Is
Yes.
that what you said?
Yes.
Of the world.
Yes.
That's a pretty cool commerce.
Yeah.
I had someone one time, they go, "Oh, there's way too many almonds in this valley." I said, "Man, we should have the whole valley covered with almonds, because we're providing them for the whole world."
Exactly.
Wow. Hey, thank you, Nick, for joining us today. Is there anything else we should know before you go?
Well, we've got, depending on where you're living at, we've got 3 seats open on the board this year. That 2 of them are the incumbents are not running again. One of them they are. Get involved. Start listening to what the politicians have to say, and vote.
Now, is that elected position for
Yes.
the board?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether or not I know that, I want to make sure everybody else knows.
Yep. No, I hear you. Yeah. No, and we have 2 incumbents. One's moving out of state, and the other one decided he wasn't wanting to run again. So we're going to get new board members. Larry Bird and myself have been on the board for 11 years now.
Wow.
And so we'll get 2 new board members, and then the third one, the incumbent is running, but he does have an opponent. So we could have a rookie majority on the board
To bring up and running.
Yep.
Wow.
It'll be great.
Is there what's the requirements to be a board member, and is it a lot of your time?
You have to live in the district or in the division, and it doesn't matter if you're a farmer or city dweller. City dweller. You don't have to be a farmer. There's no requirement there. You just have to live in your division. And time wise, we have meetings generally twice a month. If need be, we have them a few more. There are committees that we're on, and so you look at it, and you're looking at probably an extra 40 to 50 hours a week or a month. A month. 40 to 50 hours a month that you're busy, either making phone calls, emails, that kind of stuff.
Right. And non-paid?
There's a small stipend. I wouldn't say we're getting rich on it.
Is it more than the Mayor of Modesto?
No, not even close. You don't do it for the money, that's for sure.
That's right. It's to protect water.
Correct.
Do what's right with water.
Yep. I always say, I got asked that question, and why do you want to do this? And I said, look, I'm a farmer. I want to be able to be involved with making the decisions that deal with water, not having to deal with the decisions that were made about water.
Absolutely.
Right. That's and that's the reason people need to get out and vote, so they can not complain about how things are done, but get out and vote, and so you get your voice be heard.
Absolutely.
That's much easier than I thought I was going to get out. All right. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show today,
Thanks
Nick.
for having me.
It was a great time, and we'll have you back on again. And we were talking the most important thing in life, which is water, with today's guest, Nick Blom. He is the MID board member of Division 5. If you got any questions or comments for us, give us a call here at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915. Or you can email us at radio@realestatejerky, and we'll be right back.
You can change the way you live out the rest of your life with our new reverse mortgage products from Lending for Living. Our loan limits are the highest available. Call us today at 209-846-9270 or visit lendingforliving.com.
Welcome back to Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV, where we always give you something to chew on here. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, here with Mike Kelly, who is a RE/MAX agent. Thank you, Mike.
RE/MAX executive, yeah.
That's right. I'm apologizing.
No worries.
All that in. All right, so what do you think about what we were just talking about for the last 20-some minutes about water and all that? I'm one of those people that could get into trouble. I mean, that I learned how to water multiple times in one day.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of dripped information on us just a second ago. How did I put that in there?
That was pretty good.
One of the things that we laymen, people just driving around town, don't really think about is the flood irrigation that is also replenishing the groundwater, and how groundwater is a huge conversation these days in the state about MID using it for all other purposes. So, that's interesting to me, that groundwater flooding, you're also replenishing. You're using and replenishing. Right. Great idea.
And that's what I say when I water my lawn.
That you're helping recharge the groundwater in the city of Modesto. And you know what? There's a little bit of truth to that.
Right. A little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
It's just a little tiny bit.
But I think, how would if you don't have water in a community, the community dies.
Yeah.
Right. And remember that one Aaron Brockovich did that movie about?
Yeah. Was that Massachusetts or?
No, that was actually in California. It's in the middle on your way going to, if you go down to Bakersfield and you cut across, like you're going to Las Vegas as you're going.
Where the water was poisoned.
Yeah, out there in the PG&E and all that. So those bureaus. So what I'm saying, that whole town is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that just shows you, if there's an issue with water, if I in a certain area, right, and the water goes away, you
don't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't. There's a reason why we bring so much water to the deserts. There's a reason they don't have it, and there's a reason why Las Vegas is working, because they brought a bunch of water to Las Vegas, right? So
and now they capture some of that water during the summertime when they get those mass rains, right? And they get it floods, and they take all that water and they store that water,
right? Which is what we should be doing more of, I believe. And we've been talking about that. The state's been talking about that for years and years and years, with not a lot of action. And there's a lot of people that just get in the way of progress, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I mean, and I think it's because they want to have crises so that they can utilize those crises for whatever they want to use them for.
Okay, so the importance of going out and vote for somebody that doesn't get tied up with the crises.
Well, I'm just saying that's where we're going right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's our opinions. Yeah. Everybody's entitled to them.
To our opinion.
To our opinion, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just it's
frustrating.
Yeah, because we've had such a water issue for as long as
years and years and years and years.
And prior to that, my grandparents had a dairy forever. Not a lot of water, but I remember moving sprinkler pipe in the middle of the summer, every 10 feet or whatever, every day, so we could water and then occasionally the water would come and they'd flood irrigate. But in the meantime, in between, in order to keep the grass going, you had to move the sprinkler pipe.
Right. And what was that grass doing?
It was feeding the cows.
Right? Yeah. It's all cyclical.
And they were Jersey, so they were making cheese, right? They milled milk, and then that milk went and made cheese.
Right. And it's interesting that he said that our human consumption it consumes about 25% of the water just by curtailing our consumption.
Right.
A very small drop in the bucket by comparison. It's important that we eat. It's important that we have commerce. It's important that we what do we call it, export, and make some money. That money stays in the valley.
Yes.
It's important that we conserve water. Yes, it's still important. But the biggest story, I think, is listening to him is we need more storage.
I've been
Period.
We have to. We need to get back because we have enough snow. We have years where we have 197% of snow, right?
Yeah.
Or 175. In the past 5 years, probably we've had that 3 times, right?
Yeah.
We could have stored that water, right? And but instead they're like, we got to put it down to get rid of that fish.
No, it's not about a fish.
fish
It's
is-
never been about fish. That's just bullfish.
Is that bullfish?
It's bullfish.
Yeah.
And then what Nick mentioned about the evaporation of snow that doesn't make it down to the ground because of the mismanagement of the forest. I mean, think about that. We know we've been mismanaging our forest. That's why we're on fire all the time.
Right.
And now there's an additional portion of the mismanagement, and that's water recharging, by it melting, recharging groundwater. Ridiculous. What are we doing?
We're not doing what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you're listening to Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV with me, your host, Ed Parcaut, veteran mortgage expert and president of Lending for Living. And I'm here with Mike Kelly of RE/MAX Executives. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915. Or you can email us here at radio@realestatejerky. All right, so we're talking water storage is what we're talking about. We need more storage.
Right.
And we need more politicians that are going to do what we want them to do.
Who understand the issue with water. Yeah.
And also do what we want them to do. What I mean by that is a lot of and I'm not knocking every politician, but some will tell you what you want to hear, and then they get in and they don't do anything, right?
Well, and I think that's where you bring up lobbyists. You bring up the people that actually start to control the politician. Money's king.
Well, they had to get there somehow,
Yeah.
right? And that's amazing how expensive it is in certain races and how much money is spent to get that person in office. And I know we're kind of off subject, but it's really amazing how much they spend to get people in, to control them and have control over them.
Right.
And it's gone are the days that anybody could get into Congress or the House or.
What's so bad is when fiction becomes reality. And you see all these old movies. I have a point here.
I'm sure you do. I'm
You
following.
see all these old movies about politicians and how government works, and there's always a little bit of truth to it. And then they go a little bit more far-fetched, and they show all the workings behind the scenes where, everything's manipulable and creates the utopia or the thing that the politicians want, or the person holding the puppet strings for the politician. And it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. So people, pay attention to who's running. Vote correctly.
Right. I'm sorry, what were you saying about Biden?
I didn't say a thing, but I did.
Yeah, it's just be careful. And I say this all the time on the show, so it's nothing new. Vote, right? Voting. The one thing I say from Obama is voting has consequences.
Yeah.
That's the one line, and it's so true. The last vote we had, Stanislaus County came out, 16.8% of the voters came out. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Don't complain about what's going on if you're not going to come out and vote. The only way to fix our situation is to come out and vote and vote. I don't care if you vote the same way I vote, but I want you to get out there and vote. I want to see 89%.
And why aren't we? Why aren't we?
I don't know. I have no idea why people.
What's the issue? Oh, my vote doesn't count. Bull.
It could. I guarantee a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
Because of what happened. There is 50% of the country who's still upset with what happened. They think it was a certain way. And I'm staying out of each side of this right now. I'm just saying how people feel, and the other half was. And that's what happens when you don't vote for something, but you vote against something. We need to get back to voting for something. We need to get back to making California golden again, get that tarnish off of California. It's not as golden as it should be. Mm-hmm. We need to get more people out there. I'm real big on having veterans get into voting and to vote, because two veterans, different party, can talk. They take the emotion out of it. They can talk and have a conversation, not get upset about things.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's gotten absolutely crazy with the angst between parties and the not being able to work anything out. It's interesting. We had a situation on our block just a few weeks ago, and it basically came down to they didn't appreciate the fact that this person was exercising his First Amendment rights, freedom of expression by flying a certain flag in the neighborhood. Turns out the little guy didn't even live here, and got on a plane and left for Luxembourg after he sent out a note to everybody's mailbox. Now, why can't we just honor each person's opinion?
Right. You're not supposed to agree
to disagree.
Yeah, I agree. All right, it's that time again. It's the end of the show. Thanks to our very special guest, Nick Blom, MID board member of Division 5. Mike, thank you so much for being here today and joining me.
This is my first time. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, as my co-host here, we do 3 days a week in the mornings at 8:30. We talk about the market, what's going on. So I thought you would be a good fit for this, and it seems like it is. It's just I got to get back at knowing how to do the outs and ins again.
Well, and maybe I can learn some stuff and help out.
I think you will be able to. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can just Google Real Estate Jerky. You can pick whether you want social media, email, whatever. If you want to reach out to me, it's 209-404-1915, or you can reach or email us at radio@Real Estate Jerky. Be safe out there. We are proud to live in this land of opportunity where you can still build personal wealth through home ownership. We'll keep bringing you something to chew on here at Real Estate Jerky every Saturday at 12 noon and Sunday at 10 a.m. My NMLS license number is 235384. And Mike, what's your license number?
01072204.
And we'll talk to you next week.
'Cause we got small towns and farmland, folks who still make a living with their hands.